I'm Steve Lanford, and welcome to Sure in the Saddle. On this episode, we're joined with Chuck Potter. Sir, how are you?
Hi, Steve.
You know, Chuck Potter is the founder of HoofCinch. They've been our sponsor since we started this going on like 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
We met Chuck. I was very, very impressed with Chuck's knowledge. He came on board, he supported us, and we're doing a show right now, and Chuck and Krista, his wife, they came in the night before. We sat around and talked with Jen and everybody on what we should do in the show.
Right.
And this is, call this right now sort of almost as a broad umbrella, a hoof health show.
Sure.
So we're doing the show to educate you guys, the viewers at home, on what to look for in farriers and hoof health, and sort of give you a good understanding of how important the horse's hoof is to their overall well-being. So starting off right now, for the viewers at home, what should some of the things they should be looking for in terms of farriers, the industry, stuff like that?
Well, I guess the first thing you have to know about the horse industry is there's no set standards anywhere. So anybody can pick up the tools of whatever trade they want and declare themselves an expert.
Right.
So you'll have people picking up the nippers and the rasp, and that's all they'll show up with, and tell you that they are a hoof trimming expert.
Right.
And that no hoof gauge, no other shoeing materials, they don't know how to put shoes on.
They have a barn and an arena, they're a trainer.
There you go. Yeah, so when you get people that don't have standards, you end up with this wide array of choices that the horse owner has to make. And it's very difficult, a lot of them, because people can be very convincing in their chosen trade that they're not trained in.
And I think too, a lot of it, I think the horse owner is trying to educate themselves. They do want to know.
Very true.
And because they want to know so desperately, sometimes the information they're given, they really do believe wholeheartedly is correct.
Sure, and it's a normal thing. We always take information that we already know. So we know ourselves.
Right.
And we try to equate it to the horse, but it doesn't work because the horse's foot is like nothing else.
Okay.
And there's an internal and external parts. So the bones have to transmit the weight to the hoof wall, to the ground.
Okay.
And they don't walk like we do. We break over our toe. So we equate horses, when they walk, they're breaking over. But if you actually watch one, they pick their foot up and then go forward and set it down until they get at speed. And then you'll start seeing more of the breakover. That's why you don't see wild horses running around with rolled toes and cut out quarters. They have beautiful feet on them. It looks like a farrier just got finished trimming them. It's because they don't have this breakover. They only run when they have to.
Right.
And so they're just walking around. The feet are wore, perfect, look good.
Okay. So for the people at home, what should they be looking for in their farrier?
Well, you want one that's trained in science. Most of the farrier schools out there now it's the farrier science courses. People that go through, and the schools teach the structures and functions of the hoof capsule and leg, because that's our primary goal, is to line up those three lower bones as a farrier.
Okay.
If you don't know the science behind them and how they're hooked together and what all's involved in movement, you can't do the job correctly.
You said yesterday when we were sitting around having dinner that you have to speak to the lowest denominator when you're explaining things. How did you say that?
Yeah, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it.
Okay.
So that's the thing. When I'm talking to horse owners, even vets, farriers, people, I try to still talk at the common name knowledge. Instead of P3, we use the coffin bone. P2, P1, short pastern, long pastern. I don't go into the scientific names of them, anything like that. Just use the common names, because everybody knows what those are.
Right. It's easier for the owner to understand, so that they're not drowning in all this pseudo.
Yeah, whenever if I'm working in a barn and I got a veterinarian there and they start to explain stuff to the horse owner after an x-ray, I can see the look come over the owner's face. It's just
thoroughly confused.
Yeah, and so I have to stop and then explain to them what the vet just said.
Right.
And some of the vets, I don't know if they know how to come down to that level. They're extremely smart people, and I think they have more of a trouble talking down to the level.
And I think too, it goes back to that the horse owner really does want to know what to do, and so the information that they're getting sometimes is overwhelming, and it makes it hard for them to make an educated choice because it gets a little deep.
Well, in today's world, you have the internet.
Right.
You can find whatever you want to believe on the internet.
Yes.
So if you're one
There's a YouTube video for everything.
Exactly. And so you can always find, if you think that licking a steel pole is going to cure cancer, you can probably find that somewhere online. And it's the same way in the hoof care business. It gets to be overwhelming for the owner. Farriers now, it's getting fewer and fewer of actual farriers out, and you're getting more and more of farriers. People that have picked up the tools and just are out there trimming horses, but they don't understand what they're doing. A lot of times they do a great job until things go wrong, and then trying to figure out how to fix them because you don't know the science behind your job.
Okay, all right. We're going to grab a horse, and I just want you to sort of go over the horse real quick and show people what to look for in terms of, structural alignment and things like that.
Sounds good.
Okay. We've got Bubba out, and this is our 4-year-old here. Chuck, real quickly, when you walk up to a horse as a farrier, say, I call you out, Chuck, I need you to come shoe my horses. You're coming in as a farrier, what are you looking at?
Well, as we approach the horse, if the horse is already in and we haven't been able to see the horse move,
right?
So we don't know if it's lame or not. So if it's in the ties, it's already there. What I'm looking at is confirmation.
Okay.
We usually like to see the horse move as it's coming in to know if there's already an existing problem.
Okay.
So that way, once we're done and they go walking off and they're limping, like, oh, what did we caught? Most of the horses I do now, unless they're founder or that or my own clients.
Right.
And I don't really take more clients at this point unless they have a navicular or a founder case.
Okay.
So I know my horses pretty well.
At this point,
and
right.
yeah, and my clients well too. I know they're not going to try to put a horse in the ties, have me work on, oh, you lamed it, when it was lame before I got there.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So let's go over and just sort of point out a couple things that you look for when you're approaching a horse.
Okay. Yeah, normally when I'm walking up to a horse, the first thing I'm going to look at is its face, and that to see what kind of mood the horse is in. And if it's got its head down, it's relaxed, ears are focusing to where things are going on. You can tell right now he's kind of focusing on the banners back there. His ears are turned back and he wants to turn his head. But that'll let me know, okay, is this one, do I have to be a little more cautious or can I go more free with it? And this horse is pretty gentle and calm. So as I'm walking up, I'm looking at his overall conformation to see where the legs are underneath the horse, because that's my main concern as a farrier, where their legs are positioned under center of gravity for each limb. And the way we determine that is I'm walking up, I look at the point of shoulder. So the point of shoulder is here on the horse. So got one here, one here. And his legs and feet should be underneath that point of shoulder, which his are. If you look at him standing, you drop a plumb line down and it goes right through the middle of the foot.
Okay.
And then the next thing I want to look at is there any crooked parts to the limb? Is one side of the bone growing faster than the other? At a 4-year-old, it's still possible, and they can still catch up for about another 6 months or so.
Okay.
The growth plates as they change, but he's pretty close to being full grown. So, and his legs are fairly straight on this guy. Then what we want to look for is where the feet are placed forward and backward underneath the horse. So once you get him squared up, what we start looking at all right, so then we would look at the wither down to the point of shoulder. And you can see his is about a 45-degree angle. That's about a perfect angle for a shoulder. And we come about center way on that, drop a line down, and it should bisect the side of the foot through there. And his does. I mean, he's very nicely set up in the front end. Then we start looking for turns in the foot, because that'll tell us if we're starting to see a part of the foot that becomes straight and then parts flare away, we know that the straight part is bearing more of the weight of the horse. So we start looking to figure out why. Is it just a trimming issue that we need to level the foot better so that it goes back under, so that the whole hoof capsule is bearing even weight, or is there a mechanical problem, conformation problem with the horse? And then those things are the farrier's job to be able to take care of so that the horse doesn't develop arthritis, the ring bone, side bone, different issues, And
so in terms of after you pick up the hoof, what do you look for?
Well, when I'm picking the foot up, the first thing I'm going to do is put the foot in a comfortable position where it's naturally relaxed under him.
Okay.
So I can look at the level on the bottom of his feet to see if it's been trim level or if it grows level.
Could you show us that?
Sure. All right, so when we go to pick up the foot, down, and what we'll normally want to do is let the foot hang relaxed in a natural position for the horse. And that right now, a fly is bothering him a little, but he's doing pretty good. So what we're looking at is the level across here. And then another thing we want to do is look at the frog. And so the apex of the frog, if you've got a turn in, you've got a slight pigeon toe. This horse has a very, very slight, it's not hardly worth mention, but a very slight turn in at the apex of the frog, which tells me that his foot is turned that way. And that's part of his conformation.
I'm going to ask you a very, very just as broad of a question as possible. Why do we put shoes on horses?
Sure, that's actually pretty good. A lot of people are so against shoes because they think shoes cause problems. They think that it stops movement and flexes the foot. In all reality, the school-trained farriers, when we go to farrier school, you're taught how to shoe to minimize any type of stoppage of movement. In other words, we don't nail normally past the widest point of the foot. We still want those heels to flex when the horse bears weight. So we only put the 3 nails in with the toe, quarter, and just before the widest point of the foot. So the feet still flex. And those are 3 tiny little nails on a 1,000-pound animal on each side. That foot's moving with those nails in it. And so you're not stopping movement. But the reason that we put the shoes on horses is some of them are used beyond the hoof's capacity. So if you're using it for reining or trail riding and different things, the horse is wearing its feet out faster than it can produce them. So a lot of times we put the shoes on for protection. And then you get into sporting events. So barrel racers, race horses, jumpers, they need advantages in performance, more grip, more traction. Road horses pulling carts, so we'll put the shoes with the little borium tips and different types of traction devices. And now they've got nice, some rubber shoes, different things we can do for the horses that are really out pounding on the roads, to help absorb some of the shock and stuff. So there's several different reasons, but those are the main. And you get into also therapeutic. So, if you get a navicular horse, you need to raise the heel, we'll put the lifts on, and after that, put the wedge shoes on them. If we have broken parts, we use what's called Z-bar shoes. So if you have a piece of hoof missing and you need to float that area, you'll have a shoe that comes all the way around, comes back across the frog and to the other heel. So that area, the weight's being absorbed by the frog some at that point. So we're trying to minimize the usage of that one part of the foot that's damaged.
I got it.
So it's medical, as well.
Okay. All right, Chuck. Thank you very much. The other thing, too, to sort of help educate our viewers, could you address a little bit about hoof angle on the front hooves and the back hooves?
Sure. The nominal angles, the ones we're taught in school that are the median, and that's what most horses will have, is normally about 54 degrees on the front feet and about 56 to 57 on the back feet. They're normally 2 to 3 degrees higher on the back than they are the front. It's not the case for every horse, but it is the median. So if we're out of that median, we start looking why. So, and the way we can know for sure is not just by looking at the foot. You cannot tell angle. Sometimes you can, if they're really bad, you can see the angle difference if you have a 5-degree difference from one side to the other. But what we're actually measuring is the hoof wall angle in relationship to the ground surface. So we use a hoof gauge, which I have over here. And so the hoof gauge, when I slide it on the foot, you can see this will move up the numbers. Here. So we start at 40. You should never have a horse below 40 degrees. I don't even below 50 degrees. And that I don't ever like to see. It's just not good for the horse. It means they have underrun or collapsed heels. They're squashing the back of their foot, and they'll end up with navicular syndrome eventually with these kind of angles. So, if we can get above 50, and like I say, most of the horses I work on are normally around 54, 55 degrees in the front. And if we go below that, and I can see by looking at the foot that I'm not lining those 3 bones up properly in the lower part below the fetlock. So I've got the long pastern, short pastern, and coffin bone. They should form a straight line down through the center of the joint when I look at it from the side.
Okay.
If you've got one that has a different axis, a very low angle, the coffin bone will be turned this way. So you'll have the palmar side of the coffin, the bottom of the coffin bone will be more flat down this way, and it's not good because you're pinching in the joint.
Okay.
And that you're putting more pressure on
You have some cadaver legs here, don't
Yeah,
you?
oh yeah, we do have out there.
All right, we're gonna grab a cadaver. We've got Chuck back here with a couple cadavers, so explain what you were talking about that hoof angle.
Okay, so if you're looking at the three bones, here's the long pastern bone,
Okay,
this is the short pastern,
right,
and then this is the coffin bone.
okay,
The little bone down in the bottom here is the navicular bone.
okay,
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about that for just a second. The navicular bone is a sesamoid. There's three of them in the leg, in the lower part of the leg. So at the back of the fetlock, there's two, one on each side,
Okay.
and one in the bottom of the foot. Sesamoids allow ligaments to change directions and glide.
Okay.
They're usually a flat, wide bone.
Like a pulley almost.
Exactly, it's a pivot point.
Okay.
And that for the deep flexor tendon. And up here, these are for the suspensories as they come around
Okay.
the leg. The angle we're trying to achieve is aligning these three bones up, so there's generally a flat line down the front.
So this one would be a line for the most part.
Right. Yeah, it's a little, I mean, you can see this bone, he foundered badly.
Right,
And you can see the bacterial infection that ate
Right.
most of the bone on this horse. We generally try to achieve a straight line down the front of the bone, and we use that by looking at the side of the foot. From the fetlock down, we should have a generally straight line. We shouldn't
Okay.
see the foot bent more this way.
So this would
or
be a
more this
healthy
way.
hoof right here.
Pretty close.
Okay.
And that, yeah, it's a little bit down. And here,
And this we
one
have
should
the
be a little more
distortion
forward.
from the founder.
Right. Yeah, this is actually a distorted hoof capsule there.
Okay.
And you can see, I mean, the tendons I'm talking about that'll put the pressure on. So if this coffin bone here was to rotate this way up, so you have a low heel, long toe.
Right.
On the horse, the deep flexor tendon down here is going to be pulled tight and against that navicular bone.
Okay.
And most of the time when you have navicular problems, it's normally not the bone itself, it's that soft tissue around it that ends up taking the abuse.
From poor angles
And ground pressure and poor angles, exactly.
Chuck and his wife Chris have been hanging out here for the day, and it's one of those, we only have a half-hour show because this could be a topic that we could go on for hours and hours. Chuck, what are some common hoof problems?
Well, some of the common hoof problems that horse owners will see, and they become concerned, and then the farrier or the veterinarian gets called. One of the biggest things is abscesses.
Okay.
And abscesses can be caused by several different problems, but most of the time it's a bacterial that's transferred from the ground to the hoof.
Okay.
This bacteria wants to get away from the oxygen. Okay, so it's going to dig up into the foot to run away from it.
Okay.
When it gets up in there, it causes a gas pocket inside the hoof capsule. So it gets into the sensitive tissue, and inside the hoof capsule, there's nowhere for that swelling to go. Like if I was to punch you in the arm, you'd get a hematoma and it would swell.
Right.
Right there, your skin stretches. Doesn't happen here.
Okay.
Everything's hard around it, so any of that pressure, it smashes every nerve ending. So a lot of people, they'll see their horse out there, it won't put any pressure on the foot. It'll have that foot in the air. You think people calling the vet, oh, it's got a broken leg.
Right.
It's a simple matter of just opening an abscess.
Okay.
And normally what the bacteria, the white line of the hoof capsule, it's the spot between the hoof wall and the sole. And it's usually pretty obvious on a live horse that you can see the white line because it is a white line.
Right.
The bacteria normally will penetrate there.
Okay.
If your horse grows a fast foot and has a lot of dead sole and all that's left on there, it's just a better median for the bacteria to transfer to, and it can go in anywhere on the foot. So it can end up under the frog. And what we end up doing, if people call, we drain them. We just follow the bacteria track. You'll find a black hole. Right. And we just open and drain it.
Okay.
Once that's done, the horse is off and running. And a little bit of treatment by the owner, a little soak, on there. But there's no need for antibiotics or anything like that for this type of problem. Okay. Another bad thing we'll see, and it's kind of similar, is white line disease.
All right.
And that, so normally when we're trimming the foot, what I'm going to start seeing is a black stripe in the white line of the foot. When I start to dig up there, I start to see more and more dead material.
Okay.
So it's a track that the bacteria is left there again. It's not going into the sensitive structure, it's staying in the white line.
And that white line, is that the lamina that we talk about?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
it's down where we can see it on the hoof capsule, on the sole area. And when we have to deburr, is what we call it, we'll start removing the hoof capsule to get above that bacteria. We normally will try first just to dig it out and treat it. If that doesn't work, then we end up needing to remove the hoof capsule to get above it, because once it's exposed to air, it's dead. And then we just let the hoof capsule grow back. There's no pain involved in this when we do it. There's no blood, anything like that. We're just removing dead material.
So when the white line is exposed to the air, that's when it dies.
Yes, yeah, you'll actually see if we remove a hoof capsule, if we have a horse that gets injured, and the hoof capsule has to come off, before we take it off, they've already have their laminae, the insensitive laminae on the hoof capsule side, starts to turn into a second hoof. I mean, it's hard as a rock.
Okay.
And even if we deburr a horse, you'll see that within a day, everything under there is hard. When you touch it, it's just like another hoof. It's not, but it's like one. So it's still protection.
Horse's mechanism to protect itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of the other things that we'll see in general hoof care is thrush.
Okay.
And if you pick your horse's foot up and you pick in there, you will smell it.
Yes.
I mean,
I think almost everybody's familiar with it a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, they want a lot of lamenesses. They'll try to, say, hey, thrush is causing this thing.
Right.
Usually it's the low heel, long toe thing that's causing the problem and not the thrush.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks,
You
Steve.
and your wife, Chris. Now, Chuck Potter, he's a founder of HoofCinch, and he saved thousands of horses with the HoofCinch. I want to thank you for everything that you do. And they've been here for a day, and we keep talking about all this stuff about hoof health and laminitis and founder and navicular. And I got to be honest, I've been picking Chuck's brain, having a great time at it. So I want to send you guys off. I'm Steve Lampett. Thanks for watching Sharing the Saddle. We'll see you next week right here.